Hello Mzansi, welcome to episode 442 of the Farmers Inside Track podcast. My name is Duncan Masua and I'm your host for this episode, powered by SANSOR. Now, making sure that farmers get their hands on a wide variety of high quality seeds is no overnight success, trust me. Did you know that creating a new seed variety can take up to 15 years? Yes, it's a lengthy and detailed process that involves trials, regulatory approvals, and several quality checks. In this episode, Dr. Magdeleen Cilliers, Project and Research Officer at the South African National Seed Organization, SANSOR, provides a comprehensive overview of the intricate process involved in seed availability, from initial research to final distribution.
Dr. Magdeleen, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. It's absolutely lovely to have you with us today. We will be delving into the specific topic of ensuring that we have seeds specifically in South Africa and the role of that within SANSOR. Let's talk about ensuring seed availability. Can you walk us through the intricate process involved in ensuring a wide variety of seeds that's ready for the market for farmers when they actually need them?
Yes, thanks very much, Octavia. To ensure that there's lots of seed available for farmers, it's really quite a long process. It doesn't just happen. And it starts right at the beginning, where seed companies will start doing research and development, and they will start breeding new varieties for specific challenges that farmers have. Example, for climate change or for the different diseases, as there's quite a big of an increase in disease pressure. And breeding new varieties, even with newer technology, can take between 12 to 15 years. So this is a very long time and a lot of input and cost that goes into developing these new varieties. When the varieties are bred, companies will continue to do trials with these varieties to make sure that these varieties are adapted for different areas in South Africa, also perhaps to see if there's any information that they can gather from these trials that they can use in their marketing process. And if everything is ready and the company decides to take these varieties to market, then they first have to go through the regulatory system of South Africa. And that entails to apply for variety listing. And no seeds can be sold to farmers without the seed being on a variety list. This is really to protect the farmer, to make sure that the seed is of good quality, that the seed that is being sold to the farmer will germinate. There's certain standards that seed have to adhere to according to our national law. And when these varieties are submitted for variety listing, the company can also decide if they want to submit it to get plant breeders' rights on these seeds. These tests take between 2 to 3 years and is done by government. Thereafter, only the company will start producing the seed and multiplying the seed. So when they have variety listing, they can then make sure that they are ready for market. They can go to market. They can start advertising the seed. They can start reaching out to farmers. When the seed comes off the field, when the seed was multiplied, all the seed will still go through different quality assurance checks to make sure they adhere to the different set out rules by government. And then on some seeds, like especially our grain seeds, during this whole process, they can also go through a certification process. However, some of our vegetable seeds or most of our vegetable seeds does not go through certification. However, it takes, as you can see, between 12 to 20 years to get a new variety from start onto the market. It is something that the companies do very well. They have breeding pipelines, so they are able to send out new varieties into the market every year because they don't start from scratch every year. However, when you start from scratch, it really takes a long time to make sure that the seed that reaches our farmers are of good quality and are able to cater to their needs for their specific environment that they are looking for.
From the initial stages of production to the final distribution to farmers, what are the critical stages in the seed supply chain that ensure seamless availability of quality seeds?
The whole process of the seed supply chain is incredibly important. If there's one step skipped, then it will not work. Everything is needed to ensure that we have quality seed for farmers. From my department, I am especially interested in the breeding stages, the research and development. It's very important to ensure that the seed that the farmers get is actually the seed that they need. It doesn't help that varieties are bred. That doesn't work for farmers. It's not perhaps farmers require seed to be more disease resistant to specific diseases, or they maybe require it to have a different type of quality for the end product or even different tastes. And this is very important for our breeders to make sure that they breed according to the farmer's requirements. That it takes a long time. So there's a very fine line with breeders communicating with farmers, making sure that they know what they want. But ensuring that the quality of these seed is of good quality is, of course, very important. You can have the best variety that is bred perfectly for the correct environment, that is 100% disease resistant for the type of diseases that are in that area. But if the seed is not of good quality and cannot germinate and doesn't have a good vigor, then it's not going to help the farmers at all. So from the first stage until the last stage, it's very important to make sure that all the tick boxes are checked during the quality process. And we always try to keep in mind that the end user, the farmer and the consumers are protected. They are able to get the quality product that they need.
So understanding the regulatory landscape that can be pretty complex, could you shed some light on the regulations governing the seed industry and how they impact seed availability and specifically the quality?
Yes, definitely. The seed industry is a highly regulated industry. There's good reason for that. As mentioned, we have to protect our farmers, but we also have to protect the safety of consumers when buying seed or when buying the final end product to make sure that everything is as it should be. So there's quite a lot of legislation and policies regulating the seed industry. And I'll just mention a few, which is of the biggest legislation instruments that we use in the seed industry. The first is the Plant Improvement Act. And in this act, we have various things that we have to look at. The first is, of course, as I mentioned, is that no seed in South Africa can be sold if it is not registered on a variety list. And for seed to be registered on a variety list, the Department of Agriculture will do certain tests. It's called a DUS test to make sure that these seed will grow uniform and stable, but they are also distinct from other varieties on the variety list. And this act also ensures that the premises of which the seed is going to be sold from and bred is registered so that everything is above board. And this act also has the quality standards to make sure that the seed has a certain germination or that it doesn't have impure parts. And there's strict requirements on all of those things to make sure the seed is of good quality. However, there's also another act which we focus on, and that is the Plant Breeders' Rights Act. It really takes a lot of money to get a new variety on the market. We get conventional varieties and we get varieties made with genetic modifications, such as varieties that have insect resistance against certain insects. These varieties can take up to $150 million to get a variety like that on the market. And for that reason, it's very important to protect the intellectual property of this big investment. We have to ensure that South Africa has a very competitive market, and we have to make sure that research and development is possible to continue with, because nothing stands still. Climate keeps changing, new diseases continue to come into our country, and we have to make sure that we can continue to innovate, and we can only do so if our IP is protected. So these two acts, the Plant Improvement Act and the Act of Plant Breeders' Rights, is really important for our industry. However, there's various other policies and legislation that we have to adhere to, especially when it comes to the import and export of seed. When it goes to different countries, we have to look at things like pests, and we don't want to give other people, other countries, pests that we might not have, or get pests that we don't have from another country. So there's lots of requirements to really think of there. And then there's also lots of requirements when it comes to the use of genetics, especially of our indigenous crops, but also of genetics of other countries, which we also use those crops where those crops might be indigenous too. So the regulatory environment for breeding of seed is quite strict. However, our seed companies for many years have been willing to work with these regulations and policies to ensure that the quality seed that they give to our farmers is of top notch.
With your expertise in this field, how do intellectual property influence farmers, particularly concerning the ability to save seeds and replant them in subsequent seasons?
So in South Africa, farmers are allowed to save seed and they are allowed to then replant this seed on their own property. It is not allowed that they give this seed to their neighbors or to other farmers. And there's various reasons for that. One of the things that I also explained earlier is the amount that it costs to make new plant varieties and that everything continues to change. A seed company can only make a new variety to help farmers overcome their challenges if there is a return on investment. So to get a return on investment, we have to make sure that seed is being sold in our country, of course, and we want to have the newest genetics, we want to have the newest technology to overcome these challenges, such as climate change and new pests and diseases, or even new weeds that will be affecting our crops. So if innovation doesn't continue, then our farmers will stay behind with their international counterparts and the challenges that they will have will become bigger. So that's the reason why there is intellectual property rights, which we in South Africa call plant breeders' rights. This helps to ensure that there is a return on investment on seed. If you can think that, as explained, there's lots of requirements that seeds have, this quality assurance requirements that they have, that seed companies make sure that the seed is of good quality. They make sure that it is disease-free. And if farmers continue to keep back seed and exchange seed and replant that seed, who is testing for that quality checks? So in fact, it's not being tested by seed companies, so they can actually decrease their own yield that they are receiving by reusing the same seeds every time. New diseases can spread because there's no disease screening happening when these seeds are being planted. And it really breaks down the genetics that after a few times of reusing this seed, the genetics isn't as strong and the yield that you will receive from your crop will not be optimal. So it is important for companies to ensure that their intellectual property is protected and that farmers get the correct seeds that will give them the correct yield. I want to take a short minute to just explain this. In South Africa, we have mostly used the farm-saved seed for soybeans. And for many years, there was no return on investment in South Africa, where seed companies could continue to innovate and bring in new technology with soybean. This then led to where the farmers came together and came to seed companies to ask what can be done about this and what can they do to ensure that this new technology that is already in other countries around the world will also come to South Africa. So a company was formed with the name SACTA, the South African Cultivar and Technology Agency, and this was formed by the farmers and the seed companies. It works where the farmers then paid a levy on grain that they delivered to the silo on their soybean. And this funds that was made up by this levy then was returned to the seed companies to continue breeding. It's not that simple as I just explained it now. There was lots of different places where the levy had to go, like with transformation, but lots of it would return to seed companies so that they continue to breed. And with that levy, it was actually possible to get this new technology for our farmers because the seed companies was able to show that there is a return on investment. And many new soybean varieties were released in South Africa after this levy has been introduced. And I'm sure it will continue to be so as this levy continues to be enforced. This just shows that the farmers and the seed companies can really work closely together to ensure that they have the best technology and varieties for their challenges. But it is important to have intellectual property for that reason, to show that the breeders' rights is protected in our country. And this also gives lots of people around the world the chance to invest in our country with new varieties, because we can't continue using the same varieties for the next 50 years.
Doc, looking ahead, specifically for the future, which innovations in seed technology or farming practices are you most enthusiastic about? What potential do these innovations hold for revolutionizing the seed industry and improving agricultural practices?
I have studied biotechnology when I was at university, so new technology about genetics and improving genetics has always been a passion of mine. So there's various things that I am excited about, and I think which is going to be really improving the seed industry in the future. And one of these technologies that can be used is gene editing. So gene editing is a technology we can use to improve varieties that is really different from the old genetic modification method that created GMOs. Some products of genome editing are similar than conventional varieties. So it's something that you can almost think could happen naturally in nature. For example, if you put a soybean plant drought and it survives, and you take that seed, put it in a drought environment again and it survives, and you continue to do that for many, many, many years, you will have a soybean plant that is tolerant to drought. With gene editing, it will be easy to do this and not wait many years. You can just make that small edit in the plant, and then this soybean can already be tolerant to drought. And with this technology, there is various things that we can do. We can help the farmer with their challenges, but I've also seen that this technology is more focused on consumers. What consumers really want. Do they want, like in South Africa, maybe need a longer shelf life for certain products, or do they need higher quality products? In the world, they already started with releasing some products with this technology. For example, a tomato was released in the Northern Hemisphere, which controls blood pressure. This is things that is not as foreign as where there's other genes inserted into the plant that can perhaps scare consumers, but this is all done with the plant's own DNA and RNA. So it is really quite incredible what can be done. This is going to really change the future of agriculture, not only in the seed industry, but also in the meat industry and so forth. So I think it's really interesting. There's a few products already available, specifically focusing on vegetables. There's a company that is already looking at creating different red berries and blackberries, which have more antioxidants. So I think this is something that is very interesting, and it will really also enable our South Africa innovators to be part of the change in the economy and in agriculture, and really to innovate and see what is needed in South Africa with a focus on our South African farmers and our South African consumers, where we don't always have to lean on other countries to help South Africa in that way. And that is one of the things that I am very excited about. It is already here. It is just still moving slowly in South Africa, but it is already here. And I think it's going to be very exciting in the next 5 to 10 years to see what we can do with this technology.
That was, of course, Dr. Magdeleen Cilliers, Project and Research Officer at the South African National Seed Organization. You can, of course, read more on this topic by visiting www.foodfromzansi.co.za. And that's a wrap. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss any of the episodes. From me, Duncan Masiwa, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #Team Food from Zanzi, as always, thanks for listening.
Life in South Africa can be a lot. I mean, scroll through Twitter for a minute and tell me I'm wrong. Thank God for South Africans though, right? We're inspiring, and even on the bad days, we fight back with a smile. That's why I love Food from Zanzi so much. They're not ashamed to celebrate the ordinary unsung heroes who work every day to put food on our nation's tables. Go to foodfromzansi.co.za and never miss an inspiring story.